A very good evening. Welcome to the Chennai International Centre. It's a great privilege and pleasure to host a very eminent panel to discuss the book of today, The Death of the Brahmin Liberal, written by our own M.K. Sudharshan. Before I call him onto the stage, I have the pleasure of inviting Mr. Raman. Bharat Raman, as he is known, is a well known personality in the CIC. He is a leading senior advocate at the Madras High Court, renowned for his expertise in constitutional, civil, and commercial law with an illustrious legal career spanning over 4 decades. He has appeared in several landmark cases and is widely respected for his sharp intellect and persuasive advocacy. He served as the Advocate General of Tamil Nadu, providing distinguished service as the state's highest law officer. Beyond the courtroom, he has been an advisor to major corporations and public institutions, contributing significantly to the development of corporate and regulatory jurisprudence in India. Known for his balanced perspective, integrity, and mentorship to younger members of the bar, Mr. Raman continues to play a vital role in shaping contemporary legal thought and upholding the values of justice and fairness that define the Indian legal system. He is not mentioned in his biodata, but he's also an author, having written books on cricket, on the CSK more particularly. And we had the pleasure of hosting him on this platform a few months back. Our second guest today is Mr. S.R. Madhu. He is a writer and editor based in Chennai with over 25 years of distinguished service as an international information officer with the United Nations in India, Europe, and Africa. He began his career with the Times of India in Bombay and later worked with the American Embassy in Bombay and Delhi. As deputy managing director of Span magazine, he covered landmark visits to India by the US President Jimmy Carter and Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. He has authored 3 books and written hundreds of articles across diverse media. He has produced numerous magazines, organized video films, and served as a speechwriter for senior officials of the US government and the United Nations. An alumnus of programs in economics and journalism in India and photojournalism and communication in New York, he was the first recipient of the Times of India Gold Medal for Journalism in 1964 and is an active Rotarian. He's also, I think, a very keen music buff, and he has held programs on Mohammed Rafi, I'm told, recently. And also, I had the pleasure of listening to him for his compilation of songs on Devanand. So, welcome, sir. Welcome, Mr. Madhu. Please. Another distinguished guest of today is Mr. T.S. Krishnamurthy. Again, a friend of CIC. He has been here just a few months back when we released his book. He, as you all know, is a distinguished former Chief Election Commissioner of India, known for his integrity, administrative acumen, and contributions to strengthening India's democratic processes. A career civil servant from the Indian Revenue Service, he played a pivotal role in introducing reforms and technology driven transparency in the electoral system. During his tenure at the Election Commission, he oversaw the landmark 2004 general elections, India's first national election conducted entirely using EVMs. Before joining the Election Commission, he served as Secretary, Department of Company Affairs and held several senior positions in the Government of India and the United Nations. He has authored books and articles on governance, ethics, and electoral reform, notably Miracle of Democracy, India's Amazing Journey. He continues to be an influential voice on public policy, democracy, and corporate governance in India and abroad. Welcome, sir. Now we have the hero of today's evening, Mr. M.K. Sudharshan, a graduate of the University of Madras from Loyola College and a qualified chartered accountant. After an illustrious international career of over 35 years in corporate finance, he now lives in Chennai with his wife, pursuing his interest in Indian philosophy, world history, and comparative religious studies. His passions also include classical South Indian music, temple history, and travel. He is the author of 4 acclaimed books on religion and spirituality, 3 of which form a trilogy: Unusual Essays of an Unknown Sri Vaishnava, The Nondescript God, Abstraction or Paragon, A Tale of Two Cities, The Decline and Fall of the Ubaya Vedantins, The Epistles of Prolific Pontiff and the Middlemen of Vedapura, an English translation of a Tamil novel by Sahitya Academy awardee Indira Parsadi. the son of Sangeeta Kalanidhi and Padma Shri Srimati Mani Krishnasamy. He is the managing trustee of the Dr. Srimati Mani Krishnasamy Foundation. Welcome, sir. I was a bit intrigued of why he has named the book The Death of the Brahmin Liberal, and I got an answer. The word death in a book's title can and does make a reader perhaps squirm and shift uncomfortably in the chair. I am very aware the unnerving effect of my book's title might have on readers' minds. However, I choose to persist with the title chosen because I am convinced it serves the central purpose of the book, that is, to describe the death of decency and decorum, idealism and dharmic values in politics and public life today in our country. When a tiger has already gone extinct as a species in our beautiful wildlife forest lands, what does it matter whether we call the extinction death or the last of the tiger? Now, AI has been resurrecting tigers recently, sir. So, thank you very much for joining us today. We have great pleasure in presenting to you this eminent panel.
Mr. V.S. Srinivasa Sastri excelled in many disciplines in politics, diplomacy, education, literature. Now, he bettered the lot of the Indian community in South Africa. He made a solid contribution to the Indian freedom struggle. He was a writer, a thinker, an intellectual, a liberal, a Brahmin liberal, as Mr. Sudharshan would say. Now, he's not exactly a household name in India or elsewhere, though he deserves to be. And my compliments and thanks to Mr. Sudharshan for an extremely well-written and comprehensive book on V.S. Srinivasa Sastri. And my thanks and compliments also to the Chennai International Centre for honoring Srinivasa Sastri with this meeting. Now, Mr. Sudharshan has said that the book is not a conventional biography, it's more a biographical montage. I think this meeting should also be a montage of V.S. Srinivasa Sastri. And I'll do so by posing certain questions to our distinguished panel. And their responses, I'm sure, will constitute a valuable insights into the life and work of Srinivasa Sastri. My first question is a simple one. It's for all the three panelists. Why is Srinivasa Sastri special or exceptional? Why should we honor him? So I'll request Mr. Sudharshan to answer this question first. He could take about 10 minutes. Then Mr. Krishnamurthy and Mr. Raman, I would request them also to answer this question and take 5 minutes each. I think that would be an excellent beginning to an illuminating discussion. Mr. Sudharshan.
Srinivasa Sastri was an international figure during his times. And Chennai International Centre is doing the right thing by commemorating his memory on this platform this evening. I want to thank the people who made this book possible and this event possible before I go on to answer Mr. Madhu's question. I want to say thanks to my good friend Kasturi Venugopal of the Hindu. And of the CIC, I want to thank Mr. Chandramouli and Mr. Sabarivas. My gratitude also goes to the distinguished guests on the stage here, Shri S.R. Madhu, Shri T.S. Krishnamurthy, and Bharat Ram. I want to also thank my publishers in New Delhi, Blue Rose Publishers. But my very special gratitude goes to all the family members of the Right Honorable Srinivasa Sastri, who are all seated here amongst us this evening. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your presence here. Last but not the least, I also want to thank my wife, Divya. She is my in-house editor, and she's a hawk-eyed proofreader. who read the book only last evening, and she has already told me that she has spotted several grammatical errors, the proverbial printer's devil, and at least one bloomer. That gives me hope because I think sometime in the future there'll be a revised edition with all those errors removed if this edition does reasonably well. Now, let me get down to business to answer the question Mr. Madhu has asked me. But before I do that, I'm going to ask the audience two questions. And I hope all of you will answer the question by raising your hands, but please answer it honestly. My first question is, how many of you here are serious students of history, especially Indian history? Please raise your hands. Well, that gives us a good idea of the profile of the audience. My second question is, how many of you here have read anything, anytime before on Right Honorable Srinivasa Sastri? Please raise your hands. So again, that gives us a good idea of the profile of the audience. So let me go straight down to business. This evening isn't merely a book launch. It is actually an invitation to rediscover a remarkable yet largely forgotten figure in Indian history. Srinivasa Sastri, my journey to this book, to meet him, began very unexpectedly through a friendship with his great-grandson, G. Karthikeyan, who is seated here. Karthik, can you just get up? Yeah, that's Karthik. Please give him a good hand. The great-grandson of Srinivasa Sastri. We did our chartered accountancy together, and that's what led me. He actually, about 4 or 5 months ago, sent me a lot of Shastri's letters, speeches, archival material. And after I read that, I knew that here was a man with an extraordinary moral vision that I felt demanded to be heard again in our country. When I was an undergraduate in Loyola College, I had admired Shastri only as an extraordinary Sanskrit scholar of Valmiki Ramayana and a dazzling, splendid orator in English. The new discovery I made in writing this book is that behind that literary eloquence, there was also a man who was a far-sighted statesman, a brilliant, astute diplomat, and a tireless freedom fighter who all his life had wrestled with existential questions that remain urgent in Indian politics even today. How do we reform without destroying what matters? How do we dissent without bitterness? How do we live morally in the public eye? So let's get to the question or to the observation Mr. Chandramouli made just now. The death of a Brahmin liberal. Yes, I agree. The title of my book may sound dark and funereal, but it signifies a deeper fading away. That is the disappearance of a culture of dignity, restraint, and the courage of the moderate liberalist. Shastri's kind of leadership, marked by gentle strength, courteous speech, and principled independence, has all but vanished from our public life in India. Shastri lived in an age of giants, Gandhiji, Nehru, Rajaji, and yet he never was overshadowed by them. He challenged Gandhi on the ethics of means and ends. He cautioned Nehru against haste without harshness and debated Rajaji on tradition with affection. Above all, he stood firm in his convictions without venom or personal rancor. This book draws out three vital lessons from Shastri's life. They are lessons, I believe, essential for the survival of Indian democracy today. First, tradition and reform can and must coexist. Second, democracy is not chaos, but a discipline of manners, not noise. Third, to be a moderate and a conscientious liberal is often a lonely path, but it is indispensable. Ladies and gentlemen, writing this book for me was a journey of moral reckoning. I sought to admire Shastri without idolizing him, to argue with him without dismissing him. At times, Shastri unsettled me as any true moral exemplar should, reminding me that intellectual honesty demands facing one's own biases, not escaping them. So the question is, why bring Shastri's voice back now? Why? Because Indian democracy desperately needs discourse that debates ideas without disdain, that argues with conviction, not fanaticism. The Brahmin liberal, that's the title I've given here. The Brahmin liberal is no caste label. It is a moral idea, a call to lead with humility, to speak with restraint, and to balance power with conscience. Sadly, voices like Shastri's are today facing a shrinking public space in India. As one Western thinker has noted, I'm quoting him now, public intellectuals aren't becoming difficult to find because we are in any kind of deficit of brilliant thinkers, but only because the space for these figures has nearly disappeared. Intellectual influencers today, though brilliant in their own right, have to contend with branding themselves for social media. They have to publish articles and make content that generate engagement rather than encouraging deep thought. The complexity and weight of ideas is often sacrificed for the sake of appealing to the masses. When your goal is not only to present ideas, but to make them palatable and digestible for a distracted audience, the boundaries of intellectualism start to blur. Ideas are no longer for discussion, they are for consumption. Unquote. Shastri's legacy invites us to relearn respect, the art of disagreement without disrespect. This book, I assure you, will challenge all readers to imagine a parliament echoing with reasoned debate, a civil society honoring bridge builders, not firebrands, an education that nurtures civic manners, a judiciary that celebrates principled dissent. And with the permission of Sri Krishnamurthy here, I may also add an election commission that will be left alone to do its work diligently. Ladies and gentlemen, this book is no nostalgic homage. It is an urgent call. So tonight, when you walk out from here, from this auditorium, please carry Shastri's spirit with you. Let it shape how you debate, how you dissent, how you vote, and decide who leads you. Pick up this volume, not just to remember, but to renew our democratic future, where civility, wisdom, and moderation will still have their rightful place. Thank you. May our conversations honor the thoughtful courage and dignified spirit that Shastri entrusted to all.
Thank you, Mr. Sudharshan. And I may request Mr. Krishnamurthy to answer this question. Why was Sastri special? Why should we honor him?
Very good evening to all of you. Thank you, Mr. Sudharshan, for inviting me for this discussion. I have a lot of difference of opinion with him as far as the title of the book is concerned. I'll come to it later. But why Shastri? I think that's a very relevant question. As I mentioned even earlier, that I knew as a student of Indian history, I knew about Srinivasa Sastri, but not so much of his participation in the freedom movement, but more about his lectures on Ramayana and very little about his relationship with Mahatma Gandhi or Nehru or Patel or Rajaji. Somehow I had a feeling that he was probably a very orthodox person, but not orthodox in the sense that he uses the word Brahmin. Orthodox in the sense he was a very disciplined human being. And he did contribute to the relationship between India and England at the time. He functioned as an agent general of India in South Africa, where he was specially assigned the task of taking care of the interests of the Indians there. And the job that he did, the admiration he received not only from the Indian community, but from the Britishers, the other foreigners in South Africa. He became overnight a hero there. But unfortunately, he didn't get that kind of recognition in India. And one of the reasons could be that he was a liberal. In fact, I have got some quotation about Mr. Shastri, the views of Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru. I believe initially he was very much admiring his eloquence, but somehow he felt his liberal attitude was probably not in tandem with the freedom movement of this country. And this is very unfortunate because I think Shastri highlighted the importance of the rule of law, the constitutionalism, etc., in dealing with issues, particularly relating to our own independence. At that point of time, maybe the group led by Nehru, Patel, and Rajaji felt that we should be more aggressive in the fight for freedom. But I think Gandhi developed a regard, affection to Mr. Shastri, more for his balanced outlook, logic, and his adherence to the rule of law. This seems to have been ignored because on many occasions in his autobiography, Nehru talks about Shastri not in very eloquent terms, but more as a person who was not a man of action, but more of ideas. But the point is, the expressions or the opinions expressed by Mr. Shastri should have been taken more seriously, in my opinion. And if Shastri had been co-opted along with the other three giants of the Indian freedom movement, I think the course of freedom and partition could have been different. So much of violence and hatred could have been avoided, in my opinion, of course, as I read the book, as I read even Mr. Nehru's views on the subject. We were a little too non-cooperative. And that is where I think Mr. Shastri was trying to highlight that it is better to go along and get things done persuasively than by an agitational method. Be that as it may, as far as the post-independence India is concerned, his views are much more relevant and much more important for our politicians to comply with. It's very regrettable that in our country and maybe in other democracies, hatred and violence are taking more importance than the respect for rule of law. So, in all these viewed in these circumstances, I think it's worthwhile not only to study this book and to do little more research, because Mr. I think Mr. Sudharshan has made an attempt to highlight some of the features of his life. But I think there is much more not said about him, not understood about him, which need to come to the public knowledge. Not that it will completely change our democratic movement, but I think it's high time, after 75 years of independence, we learn the importance of constitutionalism, rule of law, and the respect for human beings, respect for human communities. And I can't understand why hatred and violence should get so much of prominence in our political life. I think that explains my position.
Thank you, Mr. Krishnamurthy. We'll discuss later the course of this meeting, Mr. Sastri's relationship with Mahatma Gandhi, Nehru, and so on. May now request Mr. Raman to address this question of why we should honor Srinivasa Sastri.
Thank you, Mr. Madhu. அனைவருக்கும் மாலை வணக்கம். I think the question was actually two. Why remember and why honor? Or other way around, why honor and why remember? Why I'm saying that is I did not need 5 minutes to answer why honor. Because the last sentences in this book are the words of none other than Mahatma, the father of our nation, in April 1946 when Shastriar passed away. He has said in a stirring one-liner in his Harijan, the tribute, death has removed not only from us but from the world one of India's best sons. So if that is what Mahatma Ji felt in 1946, the fact that he has not been honored in the last 60 years is a shame for us. So that answers why he should be honored. Why should he be remembered? I will think of only 4 things which come foremost in my mind. First is something I'll borrow a little analogy from the field of law, which makes me put myself in a very convenient place. In patent jurisprudence, my sister Prabha is here to correct me if I am wrong. For several years, in order to get a patent to be tested correctly, the Madras High Court in 1960 said that the patent or whatever the invention is, you must show proof of success or use for a minimum of 7 years. Patent life is itself only 20 years. So the first 7 years goes off in proving that it's actually a workable thing. It took 40 years before Supreme Court indirectly overruled it in Sifi's case by saying, in today's world, 2010, and they were talking about 15 years back, they said to get goodwill or reputation or to make a mark on something, in today's world, it can happen overnight. A good idea can become a hit overnight. That's the expression Supreme Court used because of the media, the power of the media. Where am I heading? I'm heading to the fact that we are talking about a gentleman who was born in a remote and completely unknown, relatively unknown village called Valangaiman in the then Tanjore district and now part of Thiruvarur district. He may have been later on christened to be the man with the silver tongue, but he was not a man who was born with a silver spoon. Came from a very, very, not an affluent background, I'll put it that way, nor was he in penury, but somewhere I would say a lower middle class lifestyle. At the age of 21, he had to bring up his brothers, sisters, mother, everybody. For that person who was born just 10 days before Gandhiji, 10 days before Gandhiji. Gandhi was October 2nd, 1869, and Shastriyar was 10 days before. For that man, from that position, from a relative, completely unknown persona, to thereafter, within 40 years, rub shoulders with Gandhiji and Nehruji and Patels and Gokhale, etc., is something unbelievable. It's somebody could have done something like that in today's political life, maybe in a few years. But to do that at that time, I think called for something remarkable, and that's one reason why I would definitely remember him. The second reason why I would remember him is what he did to South Africa in 1927 when he went there as the Agent General of India. When you all read the book, you will definitely come across the chapter, it's in the first few chapters actually, where there's tremendous strife happening within the Indian community in South Africa in the late mid 2020s. And it was the British who really wanted somehow of somebody from an eminent Indian to go there and take stock of the situation, mingle with the Indian diaspora in South Africa and bring them around to Summit Path. And it was actually the wish of the British administration that Gandhiji himself should go there, since he has lived a large part of his life in South Africa and practiced there. When Gandhi felt he could not leave the Indian National Congress at that crucial time, and he felt somebody else needed to go, he thought of this obscure statesman from Malayaman as the only person who could go. And when initially Shastriyar declined the offer, there's a very moving letter of Gandhi which is reproduced by Sudharshan in the book. When he went there, he finally succumbed to Gandhi's persuasion. What he did there was something remarkable. And several moons later, when my wife and I were in South Africa in 2009, we did, of course, go to the Dublin Sastri College. But before that, what was interesting was that we went to a small town called Kimberley. Kimberley was known in those days as the diamond field of the world. But today it's nothing. It's just it's only known for the old leftover diamond mines. But there, in that small town, there is a museum which was close to our hotel where we were staying. So we just walked into the museum, and to cut a long story short, in the first floor of that museum, there was this huge table with a plaque which said Right Honorable V.S. Srinivasa Sastri. So we went there and looked around. In 1927 sometime, the town of Kimberley had apparently hosted a dinner in honor of the Indian Agent General to South Africa. They have preserved the menu card of that evening along with the cutlery which was served that day. So if that small town in Kimberley can remember Shastriyar, why not us? That's the second reason. The third reason is Ramayana. And here I am talking about something personal. Having been brought up in the 60s in the lap of my grandmother, I was pretty conversant with both the great epics of Indian history, Ramayana and the Mahabharata, but I'll always diss Ramayana. For me, Mahabharata was the everything. Until I read Shastriyar's lectures on Ramayana, which fortunately I got a copy because it was not in print, and Prabha and the Sanskrit College reprinted it some 10-15 years back, and it changed my perspective of Lord Rama. I'd always truly dissed him as a personality. And my opinion of him remarkably changed, and I started reading Ramayana once again. And for that, I think Shastriya should be remembered. At least if one person has been reignited with the glory of Lord Lama and Ramayana, I'm sure there must have been 1,000 others who must have been likewise inspired. The fourth reason I would definitely remember Shastriya is his felicity for a foreign language. He was extremely um, fluent in his own mother tongue, Tamil. He's written books in Tamil, public speeches in Tamil, etc. But he has known more for his flair for the English language, and how and when and in what way it developed is something I'm not personally aware of. But his language skills were so unparalleled. So much so that he, whenever you talk of English language, particularly with regard to England, which is the home of the English language, we think of one of the famous, possibly one of the best orators of contemporary England of the 1930s and 40s, Sir Winston Churchill. And Shastriya, this man from Valangaiman, corrected the language of Sir Winston Churchill. Churchill was talking about the three-pronged attack they are going to make on Dunkirk: land, sea, and air. So he called it a Triphibian attack. So Shastri wrote to Churchill and said, Triphibian is wrong English. Amphibian is too. There is no word called Triphibian, it's only Tribian. Churchill acknowledged it. So somebody with such felicity for English language, for that alone, he could be remembered. That's my 4 reasons. Thank you.
Now, a college in Durban was named after Srinivasa Sastri, and that was started in 1929. So 2029, the centenary of that college will be observed. And I'm told that all relatives of Mr. Sastri have been invited. Mr. Raman, I understand you are a descendant of Mr. Sastri. So will you be going to Durban in 2029?
Inshallah, yes.
Very good.
I will be. So will several of my relatives. We have got quite a confluence of my cousins here, starting with my eldest cousin, my mother-in-law Raji, who's written the foreword for this book of Sudharshan. My lot of my other cousins are all here. My 2 brothers are here. I think we should make a good contingent and get there to Durban. For me and my wife, it will be pleasant recollection of our time there.
Excellent. I think you and your family should be interviewed on your return about what happened in South Africa and how they honored him.
Certainly.
Now, his work in South Africa, Sastri's work in South Africa, is considered perhaps his best political success. And he used a soft approach instead of an aggressive approach to combat discrimination against Indians and to improve their lot. This Mr. Raman has told us about his work in Sastri's work in South Africa. Would you like to supplement it, Mr. Sudharshan and Mr. Krishnamurthy?
Certainly, I would like to do it. Before I do that, I just want to just clarify certain things. 2 things, really. Right at the beginning of this book, I have, in my preface, author's preface, said that this book is not a biography. It is a montage of, a biographical montage of Srinivasa Sastri. Historical memory is always fragmentary. You know, we remember certain things and then it comes in fits and starts. And my aim to write this book was not just a chronological, linear kind of history. That was not my intention, because many people, many eminent biographers have already written about Shastri. The two most wonderful biographies of Shastri is by G.V. Gundappa, who is the famous Kannada scholar, and another 500-page biography written by Shastri's 10-year-long secretary, P. Kodandarao. Now, if anybody interested in history should read those two biographies. A lot of details, a lot of history is there. But that was not my intention. So Mr. Krishnamurthy should forgive me for being very specific in the intention, my intention and what I wanted to achieve in this book. The second thing I want to just supplement, Raman, is that I did not. This book the timeline for this book is very limited. It starts from somewhere around 1914, before the First World War, up to 1946 when Shastri died. This book does not talk about his early life, where he came from, who was his family members, where did he do his schooling, all that, no. But I did come across a nugget in the biography, which talks of Shastri's extremely humble, in fact, poverty-stricken past. This salt, you remember this salt satyagraha, which was during the Rowlatt Act, when they imposed tax on salt. At that time, Shastri was remembered his mother. And he said, my mother, given the dire circumstances in which the family was, my mother was once offered a basket of mangoes by one of the friends or neighbors. And she said that I don't have the money to buy salt to pickle the mango. So how do you expect me to accept this gift of mangoes? And she returned the basket of mangoes. So that was the kind of circumstances in which Shastri spent his early life. Okay, now to talk about this South Africa. Yes, Shastri's, as I told you, this is between 1914 and 1946. He spent 2 years between 1919 and 1921 at the roundtable conferences in South Africa. And then again in 1926-27, when he went there again to South Africa as the agent general of the British government. Yesterday, Mr. Madhu actually called me and said, why Shastri was chosen? Why? Why did he have to go to South Africa? I don't want to bore you with history, but just to give you a quick capsule. After the Boer War, the British defeated the Boers, and South Africa became a dominion. But it had its own government, union government. Whereas India was still a colonial state. It was still under the British as a colonial country. So South Africa at that time was under General Smuts, who wanted to deport all the Indians back to India. The Indians who had emigrated to South Africa as indentured labor. So they wanted to send them back, just as the deportation now is going on all over the world, especially in Trump's America. So they wanted to deport all the Indians back, and their condition was very poor. So they wanted somebody to go. The British government had a problem, because if this simmering unrest gathered momentum in South Africa, the British government would have a problem, because already Gandhi had left South Africa, and he had already sown the seeds of satyagraha and civil disobedience, non-cooperation in South Africa. So the London told Delhi, the viceroy, that you better put this fire down before it flares up. So they wanted to somebody who understands the Indians living in South Africa. And so they were looking around and they said that, look, we need somebody who can be the equal of Gandhi to go back to South Africa. Gandhi by that time was very much involved in the satyagraha and civil disobedience in India. So he suggested that, look, the best person to represent the government of India in South Africa would be Shastri. So that's how Shastri went there. Outstanding success. Something I wish that Shastri's work in 1921, when he took on General Smuts in the roundtable conferences and fought for the amelioration of the status of the Indian diaspora there, who lived in very, very bad circumstances, no franchise, no rights, no status, nothing. And he was able to negotiate. He was an architect who made sure that even though they didn't get the status which should be given to all citizens in the Dominion, still they would be given good governance. Similarly, in 1926 and 27, he was the architect of what is today called the Cape Town Agreement, which prevented this South African government from deporting Indians under what they call the emigration. And he fought for the upliftment of the diaspora, the community, and that's how he built this education, this college, how he went around the country for 2 years, exhorting the Indians to not to take to civil disobedience, satyagraha, forget about Gandhi, forget about all this political strife. Start educating yourself because that's what you need to be accepted in the country. So all I want to say is that I hope that the outstanding work he did in South Africa would be recognized by two things. One is if Mr. Shastri's work in South Africa became a case study in the training college or the training programs for the Indian Foreign Service. I don't know whether they have it as a case study, but they should. The second thing I hope is that in the walls of the the Ministry of External Affairs in Delhi, I hope they have a portrait of Srinivasa Sastri hung up right there to serve as an example for young diplomats. If Sri Krishnamurthy can do something about it, that'll be wonderful.
The most controversial aspect of Sastri's life was his approach to the freedom struggle. Now, he was a critic of the civil disobedience movement. He believed that it was unconstitutional. He advocated a more cooperative approach, a more moderate approach of cooperation and persuasion with the British rather than one of confrontation. Now, he drew strong criticism from the from leaders of the freedom movement, Jawaharlal Nehru in particular. Now, Mr. Krishnamurthy, would you like to discuss this aspect, Mr. Sastri?
Certainly, but before that, I thought I'll add a little more to what Mr. Sudharshan mentioned about Shastri's performance. Shastri's performance in South Africa. I have in the book actually a quotation from an Englishman about Shastri. I think everyone should read and feel proud about it. I'll read only a part of it. First of all, let's remember that Shastri was coming from a very humble family, and particularly in Tamil Nadu. I don't think he had an exposure to Oxford or Cambridge or anything. And the way in which we all, for example, I studied in Tamil medium till 9th standard. I struggled when I went to take on English medium. I knew how much difficulty I had when I went to Baroda. But this gentleman, almost having had a life of a shell in Tamil Nadu, he became the headmaster of the Hindu high school, of which I happened to be member of the governing body at a point of time. I visited the school. You'll be very sad to know it's a heritage building, and the way in which the school, it's a government-aided school now at the moment, and it's very pathetic to see the condition of the school. The only redeeming feature in the school at that point of time when I visited was a beautiful photograph of Right Honorable V.S. Srinivasa Sastri. Otherwise, there was nothing, because it is a government-assisted school. Unfortunately, they don't have enough funds. Of course, we tried our best to connect some donors for this purpose. But the point I wish to make is a person who had had no exposure to diplomacy, a person who had no exposure to high-flown English education. He went to London in 1999, where he met Mr. Gandhi for the first time, as per Wikipedia. And Gandhi struck a relationship with him. I'm really wondering how Gandhi could not persuade his other freedom fighters to realize the importance and significance of Srinivasa Sastri. That's one aspect. The other point that an Englishman gives a tribute to Srinivasa Sastri of the significance of Mr. Sastri's ambassadorship for Indians in South Africa. It's hardly for me to speak, but one need not go beyond the speeches to find evidence of his wisdom in counsel, his discretion, his understanding, sympathy, his unerring statesmanship. To the Europeans of our land, his sojourn in our midst meant perhaps more than anything else the presentation of a new conception of India and its people. He became to us the interpreter of India as India of which, to our shame, be it said, we used to know all too little, or where we knew of it, we allowed all too readily our remembrance of it to be an obscured. Is it? Obscured. He revealed to us an India of an ancient civilization, one of the great civilizations of the world, a civilization which has made many important contributions to our modern life, an India of a serene philosophy, a wide caliber and a developed art, an India with a literature and well worthy to be numbered among the great literatures of the world. Of that India, we did not know before Mr. Shastri came among us, or if you knew of it, we did not often think of it. He made it real to us, and against the background which he thus created, he made it possible for us to see what we have called our Indian problem in a different way. Fortunate indeed was India when she sent Mr. Shastri as her interpreter to South Africa. But Mr. Shastri did more than reveal India to South Africa. He also, in his imitable way, did much to reveal us to ourselves, helping us to see no less effectively because of the kindly inoffensiveness of the method. Some of those things wherein we are in danger as a nation of falling short of those high principles to which we owe allegiance. Jan H. Hofmeyr, 1930. This is the tribute paid to him. The point you raised now is about freedom struggle. Well, I went through the biography of Nehru today and found some very pertinent observations by Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru against Mr. Shastri. I thought I should at least highlight a few of it. I think Mr. Shastri, he says, is always eloquent and has the orator's love of fine words and their musical use, but is apt to be carried away by his enthusiasms, and the word magic that he creates blurs his meaning to others and perhaps to himself. It is worthwhile examining this appeal he made at Calcutta in April 1933 during the continuance of the disobedience movement. Fundamental principles and objectives apart, 2 points seem to me worthy of note. The first is that whatever happens, however much we might be insulted, crushed, humiliated, and exploited by the British government, we must submit to it. The fine line, the line can never be drawn beyond which we must not go. A worm may turn, but not the Indian people if they followed Mr. Shastri's advice. It must be noted that he was not giving advice on a definite known situation. The constitutional changes were still in the making, though one had a fair notion that they would be very bad. If he had said that, bad as the white paper proposals are, having regard to all the circumstances, I am in favor of working them. Should they be enacted, his advice might have been good or bad, but it had a relation of existing facts. Mr. Shastri went much further and said, however unsatisfactory the constitutional changes might be, his advice was, please hold. He was prepared to give a blank check to the British government on the most vital matter from the nation's viewpoint. It's a little difficult for me to understand how many individual group or party can make up this attitude of commitment to an unforeseen future, unless it has no principles or moral and political standards, whatever, and has for its creed and policy invariable subservience to the ruler's mandates. He had some kind of a prejudice against Shastri, mainly because I have a feeling that he gave a lecture in Allahabad to the university students, asking them to comply with the rules and regulations and not to be violent in their methods. This, his hometown, Allahabad was, and this seems to really influence him so much. And Nehru was never warm and friendly to Shastri. Be that as it may, but I am surprised why Sardar Patel and Rajaji could not also highlight the usefulness of Mr. Shastri in the freedom movement. Of course, there are other instances when Shastri feels very disappointed. He resigns from the Servants of India Society, when even the Servants of India Society, of which he was a very active member, supported the partition proposal by Rajaji. I'm not saying that what others did was wrong, but all that I say is, if only they could have persuaded Shastri to be a part of the scheme towards the freedom movement and not ignored him, then probably it would have been a better story for us to recollect. In this connection, of course, I thought, I don't know whether I should speak about it, the title of the book. I'm not very happy. I agree he has given enough justifiable reasons about the book. But it is the word the death of the Brahmin liberal. I think many more Brahmin liberals have been there. And secondly, my title of the book would have been The Unhonored, Unsung Indian Liberal Patriot. That would have been a better tribute to him, because he has unfortunately been confined to a kind of a disciplined or orthodoxical way of life. He was much more than that. And I think he would have played much more active and useful role if only the freedom fighters had recognized his persuasive skill, his eloquent speech, and his ability to carry on people around him. I think his interpersonal relations was excellent. These things were unfortunately ignored, probably in their enthusiasm to be more aggressive against the English.
Can I just say something on this Nehru's thing, just to lighten the evening? I did read about that part about Panditji's views on my Tata. Hurtful as it may be, it was their way of criticizing each other. And one need not form too strong an opinion on that. But on a more personal note, I think it took 29 years after Shastri died, that Nehru's own family, his daughter, his favorite daughter, Indira Gandhi, during her most turbulent times, had to reach out to Shastriya's granddaughter's husband to bail her out of the emergency. My father, VP Raman.
This Sastri had a very special relationship with Mahatma Gandhi. It was based, to quote Mr. Sudharshan, on deep respect and candid debate. Now, this book has a lot of many letters by Sastri to Gandhi and Gandhi to Sastri, and they make for extraordinary reading. And there's one instance of Gandhi writing to Sastri, and Sastri correcting his diction. It's they were not obvious mistakes, but Sastri went into subtle nuances of the English language to correct Gandhi. And Gandhi was so taken up with it that he wanted it published, and he had this Sastri's letter to him published. This now they differed politically, of course, and I would like to Sudarshan to dwell on this aspect in brief, because we are running out.
Running out of time, yeah. Okay, I'm going to be very brief now because I want the audience questions also to come to us. If you turn to the book to chapter 7 and 8, you will read very engaging correspondence between the two of them. Shastri, short of, he mocked, basically he mocked Gandhi, Satyagraha's fasts. He, short of calling them political stunts, he never called them a humbug, but that's what I can say that he thought was the fasts and Satyagraha and all that. If you go to chapter 8, Shastri rejected outright the non-cooperation and civil disobedience movement of Gandhi and Nehru. So please do read chapter 8. Chapter 9 talks about Shastri's complete rejection of the Quit India movement. If you go to chapter 17, you can read about how Shastri severely criticized Gandhi, Nehru, and Rajaji for having conceded to Jinnah's demand for the partition of India. There is an anecdote there where Shastri was sitting in the Marina Beach and they were in the habit of meeting Rajaji there. And in that evening meeting, he came to know that Rajaji, in fact, had actively supported the idea of partition with Gandhi and Nehru. And in one of his letters, Shastri writes that I screamed at Rajaji. I screamed at Rajaji. I got so emotional that he was suffering from angina pectoris. Shastri suffered very serious heart problems. And because he lost his temper with Rajaji, that evening he went home a shaken man. So he had very strong views. Shastri had very strong views about the partition of India. You will be surprised to know that Shastri also saw the Qadar movement, which Gandhi launched. He saw the Qadar movement also as a lot of unnecessary, unwarranted humbug. So these are things which has never come into light. It has not been talked about in history. But I think the greatest criticism that Shastri had was for the civil disobedience movement. And I will just read a few, just to give you a flavor of the tension that was there between Gandhi and Shastri. Gandhi was in Yerawada prison, and he went into a 21-day fast. One of the conditions that the British had set on him was that you should not talk about, you should not give interviews, you should not write articles from jail on the freedom struggle. So the cunning, wily Gandhi, what he did was that instead of talking about the freedom struggle and civil disobedience satyagraha, he started giving interviews and writing articles on Harijan upliftment, saying that, look, Harijan upliftment is a social issue, not a political issue, so I can do that. The British said, no, nothing, you can't do that either. So Gandhi went on a 21-day fast. And then that created a problem. And Shastri was asked by Gandhi whether he supported the idea of the fast. And then Shastri wrote to him, I will not pretend for a moment that I approve of your fast, he wrote to him. To one like me, born in Hinduism and bred up in it for long years, the arguments pro and con are thoroughly familiar. From sacred texts, one might confute most of the reasoning in your statements. But beyond texts and mere authority is reason and humanity, on which you habitually fall back. Even in that ultimate court, I fear, we shall not be found on the same side. Then he wrote this line, Shastri wrote to Gandhi, our values are different fundamentally. The difference is radical, and no sophistry can abolish it. In spite of what you have said in the last revelation of your heart, I believe that too much of self-communion and internal debate have undermined your judgment. He said this to Gandhi, that you're talking about your inner voice, conscience, so on and so forth. And he said, I believe that too much self-communion and internal debate have undermined your judgment. The state of ecstasy when values are reversed, when day becomes night and night day, when pleasure becomes pain and pain pleasure, is rare even in the experience of mystics. The attempt to make it habitual and to adopt the language appropriate to that state as the language of everyday speech is, if I may use the expression, to walk on moral stilts. On occasions, you appear to me, in strange contrast to your realism, to impose that mode of movement on the common men and women around you. And finally, he says, when I come across the claim in your writing, I cannot help quoting to myself the famous line of Kalidasa, Vicharye shuha pratibhasi me tvam. You appear to be confounded by anxious thought. So he was very clear. Shastri was extremely clear. And but his relationship with Nehru was a little more complicated. Because as Mr. Krishnamurthy has said, he spoke of Shastri as being goody-goody. He used the very word goody-goody. And he said Shastri was platitudinous. These are the words he used in his autobiography. So, I just want to finish this, if you don't mind. But what did Shastri himself say? What did Shastri himself say was, when one criticizes me in the papers or on the platform, it is not my practice at once to enter into a controversy and immediately answer the criticism. If any misstatement has been made, I would correct it. For a long time, I suffered greatly on account of this. Some time back, a few years ago, a patriot of unparalleled eminence wrote a book. It sold in lakhs. Few were there who did not read it. In that book, he criticized me at great length and subjected me to humiliation. So he was open about it. He said, Nehru virtually humiliated me in his autobiography. So there was a very complex relationship, and that's the reason why, as Mr. Krishnamurthy said, he became a marginalized person. And towards the end of the book, you will see in chapters 18, 19, 18, 19, 20, you will see how Shastri coped with his life in the wilderness, which is also a very moving account of how he spent his last life a little disappointed. Thank you.
May I just say something? We started this evening with Mr. Madhu posing two questions to the three of us. He said, why honor Shastri now? Why remember Shastri now? May I put a question back to you and then answer it myself? Why was Shastri never honored? Why was Shastri never remembered? The last 20 minutes answers it all.
Just, just one more point on Mahatma Gandhi. The British had organized a peace conference on the issue of the freedom struggle, and Gandhiji refused to take part in it, and Sastri was very critical of it. Gandhi refused because he thought it was a ploy by the British to delay the freedom movement. And Sastri wrote a letter to Gandhi full of anguish, saying you should take part in the peace conference. Now we are. There is a,
Just 1 minute, sir. If you read the last few chapters on the death of Srinivasa, his last meeting with Gandhi was in the hospital, and Gandhi met him twice in the hospital, and the very emotional account of that is there in the book. You can read it. But you will find that in the last chapter, you will find that the condolences never came after he passed away. That condolences never came from the British government, although he was their agent general and he served them in all committees. Not a single letter of condolence. There was not a word of condolence from either Jawaharlal Nehru, Vallabhbhai Patel, or Rajaji. Nothing is on record. But they say that they have expressed their condolence in private conversations. But on record, at least to the best of my knowledge and my research, they say that there was no condolence message of these three gentlemen for Shastri. So that tells you much more about what the last 20 minutes has said.
Maybe we can add one more point where Gandhi met him last. He said, I had come only to see him, not discuss politics. For that, his response was, have you had enough of me? You don't want to hear me on politics at all. And Gandhi really loved Nehru. That's what I mean, as I go through this book, he loved him so much. And sometimes he said he was getting melted by Sastri's advice and all that. But unfortunately, it's my impression, Gandhi should have gone a step forward to recognize Shastri much more in the freedom movement than what he did.
Actually, in the book you will see that Gandhi loved Shastri for the simple reason that he was no yes man. He didn't say yes to him on many issues. And he wrote to Shastri saying that as far as yes men are concerned, I have many in my ashram at Sabarmati, and Vallabhbhai Patel is one among them.
we should give the audience some time for questions. So
Kindly lift your hand and the mics will reach you.
yeah. So please use the mic because.
Hello. My question is about the adjective used to the term liberal, Brahmin. Is that Brahmin adjective essential, or can it be excluded or replaced by any other term? Probably Srinivasa could have been more effective or could have been more recognized without that so-called objective.
It's a question which is very pertinent. It's also a very controversial question. The reason why I chose Brahmin liberal is not with caste connotations. It is my belief that today there is a narrative that if you are a Brahmin, you can't be a liberal, and if you're a liberal, you can't be a Brahmin. If I go out today with my Thiruman, immediately they'll say that this fellow is a Sanghi, which is atrocious. I don't want to get into this because this is a very touchy subject. I don't want to elaborate on this. What I wanted to show was that there was a man here like Shastri who was an orthodox Brahmin. He did his Sandhya Vandanam, he did his Pitrita Tarpanam, and he was a very, very, very ardent disciple of the Shankaracharya of Sringeri Mutt. And yet, Shastri's liberal values overshadowed all his religious. He was not a slave of dogma. In fact, one chapter here in this book will tell you how he debated with the Shankaracharya of Sringeri Mutt and threw the Shastra book at him to prove his point that the Sharada Act was something for the good of the nation. And he didn't do polemical stuff. He actually showed him the Agama Shastra, the Grihya Sutras for the marriage ritual to prove the Shankaracharya wrong. And it was the greatness of the Shankaracharya that he said, yes, but this is this relates to marriage rituals, and I'm a sannyasi. I have nothing to do with marriage rituals. Then Mr. Shastri told him, but if you are a pontiff, you better know about also the marriage rituals. So what I'm trying to say is that Shastri represented the best of Brahmin values and liberal values, which are really not very different. So that's why I said that both the values seem to be vanishing today. And that's why I used the provocative title of the book, The Death of the Brahmin Liberal, because in my opinion, Srinivasa Sastri represented the best liberal exemplar of his times.
It's good that you brought in this book, at least now after 79 years of the passing away of the great Srinivasa Sastri. And with the reading habits absolutely diminishing and coming to nil, now, do you have any ideas to bring this in a video digital format? If the answer is yes, then it's fine. If no, I would like to recommend to the author and to the family offline. Thank you.
Who is this question addressed? Oh, yes. It's today it's already available as an ebook, so people can download it. Whether you want it, I have no plans now for turning it into a audiobook or a video. If somebody is interested, I would be very much happy to collaborate. But to be honest with you, I think what needs to be done is propose an educational curriculum module to teach civic restraint and speech norms. This has to be for not only students of politics in the university, but I think it also should be for a continuing education for our politicians who get into parliament. I think we have to design a parliamentary rule to enforce decorum and penalize disruptions. There is a moral code of conduct during elections. He's an expert on that. But why only moral code during elections? Why not moral code of conduct inside parliament? How do you behave in parliament? There's nothing like that. And Shastri was a man who knew how to conduct behave himself, how representatives should behave inside parliament. The third one, it is there, an ethical committee, but unfortunately it is ignored. Yeah, so that's why I said we need to penalize it. We don't know how to do it, but I'm saying that's a debate which must be aroused in the country. The third one I would recommend is a civil society campaign to promote dignified public discourse. Today, there's no dignity anywhere in public discourse. You have all sorts of language, you have all sorts of gestures. So we need to have a civil society campaign. We have so many NGOs. I don't see an NGO today saying that, look, this NGO is dedicated to bring in a dignified public discourse. No, there's no NGO for that. I suggest also a judicial code or training to reinforce judicial restraint and impartiality. And this is where Mr. Bharatram can come in. I also recommend to draft a political party code to reward moderation and discourage extreme rhetoric. Today in Parliament, you hear only rhetoric. You don't hear reasoned debate. You don't hear sober thinking. All you hear is rhetoric. and bombast. So we need to have a political party code to reward moderation, and to discourage extreme rhetoric. These are some of the thoughts that I had, anticipating that somebody in the audience would ask me the question, okay, fine, you've written a book on Shastri, but what next? How are you going to enable the emulation of Shastri values today in our politics? Thank you.
It's a similar thing to what you've just said. My name is Shidula Kata. I'm from class 10. I'm from Shishya Oyama School. I'm actually really proud to say that in our Hall of Fame, in our school, we have a portrait of Sir V.S. Shastri. So I'm really happy that we have recognized him. Give my school a hand. Yeah, give my correspondent a hand. So my question to any of one of you is, how would he have impacted the present political scenario in today's world? Yeah.
That's a question I expected, so I prepared myself for that, because I'm glad that a young person like you is asking that question, because the future belongs to you, not to us. I would say that if he were alive today, Shastri would have completely rejected. In today's India, satyagraha-like mass protests and public mobilization, strikes, bandhs, blockades, sit-ins, walkouts, etc., they still remain a common method of pushing political demands, even after we have universal adult suffrage and robust legislative institutions are also in place. For example, if you take 2021, we had these farmers' protests, month-long, large-scale occupation of public highways and blockades in and around Delhi, with parliamentary channels exhausted or sidelined. Then we have, which still today we see recurring opposition walkouts and disruptions in parliament and legislative assemblies, where debate is often stalled by slogan shouting and physical obstruction. What could be Shastri's likely view? What would he have thought of this today? He would lament that these protest modes, once justified against colonial rule, now undermine the constructive functioning of Indian democracy, rule of law. See, what happens is that all this satyagraha, civil disobedience, non-cooperation were means to an end in the pre-independence era. The end was the freedom from the British, the political freedom. So the ends were fine. But what happened is after independence, the end changed, but the means remained the same. We still think that civil disobedience, satyagraha, non-cooperation is the best way to get your political interests sated. But that's not what Shastri would have recommended. He would have said that if the end changes, today the end is not freedom from anybody. The end is economic development, the Indian development, India's the national development. So the end has changed, but the means have not changed. So Shastri would have been dead against that.
Coming back to the girl's question there are two things Shastri would have made a difference in today's India. Being the master diplomat that he was, I would think that he would have had some kind of a solution to the Ram Janmabhoomi issue. He was, after all, somebody who was specialized in Ramayana. At the same time, he was a nationalist. So he would have definitely come up with something. Secondly, with today's his language skills in English, there would be no Shashi Tharoor. He would have been all there. He would be 5 times that.
The mic is here. This is not a question, it's a request to all people on the dais and influential people sitting off. Some 40 years ago, All India Radio broadcasted a 15-minute talk by the Right Honorable V.S. Srinivasa Sastri. I've heard his voice. I really want to know if someone can organize and get a copy of it, because the not just for the language, but the way he pronounced each word, the diction and the voice, and finally it's a record of the man. So I don't know if All India Radio still had it. I remember listening to it some 20-25 years ago. It was broadcast. So anybody has any influence, and Sudarshan with your
So which
Shastri's speech.
All India Radio Madras.
Right, which year do you know? Because otherwise it would be difficult to.
No. I'm sure they have archived people's voices. It was a speech by Sastri.
I think today with AI, what you can do is Shastri's speeches against the Rowlatt Act, Shastri's Kamala lectures in Calcutta under the Asutosh Mukherjee University, Calcutta University. He spoke on the subject of the rights and duties of citizens. So wonderful speech. So wonderful was the speech that Madras University, after he came back to Chennai, they wanted him to deliver the same speech, and it was delivered here in Chennai. And the Hindu wrote a wonderful praise of that speech. What you can do is, I've read the speech. I've read the speech against the Rowlatt Act. I've read the speech of the Kamala lectures. What you can do is get the AI to take that speech and convert it with the Shastri's voice.
No.
And that should be played for all the young students there and young college students. They will be thrilled.
I know we need a sample of the voice from All India Radio. I'm asking you to get that.
Well,
then we can even convert, ask AI to do the entire lectures on the Ramayana.
Yeah, I'll do my best. I mean,
is it not available on YouTube, sir?
Available on YouTube, it seems.
Is it? Check. That's brilliant news. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sure the
Please.
family appreciates it.
Yeah, great. Yes.
Journalist and a writer. One comment and an observation. So the comment is, no, I'll talk about the observation first. Was there a north-south divide during his time? And he was not given that much of importance because he was more multifaceted than other his peers, and so was that one of the reasons? And that's observation. The comment is, no, first the comment is over. Observation is, I think they can have a quiz competition in schools about Srinivasa Sastri, because I myself didn't know so much about him. Though I'm not a history student, but a chapter should be there in the school syllabus, in the school books. And there should be a competition on 14th, like, Children's Day, about Srinivasa Sastri, so that they'll read the book and they'll get to know more about him.
So,
as far as Shastri's other interests, I was quite impressed to know that he was very much interested in Carnatic music. And particularly before his death, he played the song of Tyagaraja by Musiri Subramanya Iyer. And I believe he asked his family member to repeat that for him second time, and about appealing to Rama to save him from all this, neglect or whatever it is. So this is there in the book, of course. And I have, of course, I have no particular comment, but I would like to say, if some initiative can be taken to set up a chair in the University of Madras or in any private college in memory of Shastri, I'm also willing to join that effort.
Yeah, last word.
Not so divided.
Yeah, this. I think I would let me recall what Mr. Sudharshan said, that when we leave the hall, we should carry with us the spirit of Srinivasa Sastri.
You asked the question, was there any not-so divide then? Is there any not-so divide now? That about answers it always. There will always be a north south, east west divide everywhere in the world. No, but that if that were the case, the bureaucracy is then definitely not an indicator of north-south divide, because till the 1970s and 80s, the entire halls of the North Block and South Block were full of only South Indians. Then the north-south divide is now, not then.
And both the blocks have disappeared now. Yes. They are going to Kartavya Bhavan.
My final request is all of you please do buy a copy of the book. It's available as an ebook also at very reasonable prices. It's not about me. This whole thing is not about me or my book. It's about Srinivasa Sastri. We need to bring back his values, because he was the person who followed Gokhale's dictum that public life must be spiritualized.
So, on that note, we must thank this eminent panel. I request our trustee, Mr. Anand, to give a short conclusive.
Almost 10 years back when we started, one of the objectives of the Chennai International Centre was to discuss issues, subjects, books, which are generally not discussed elsewhere. And some untold part of some of these elements has to surface. And I'm very happy to say that we did something back to back. I think a month back, Sabari will correct me and say which month. We discussed some very fascinating aspects about Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. I think most of you are present here. The Malaysian angle to that particular freedom fighter who was an unsung hero. And today there are a lot of aspects of late Srinivasa Sastri which are coming, which we were not aware. And I was just mentioning to Mr. Raman's daughter here that the history books, even at our time, have not captured what it needed to capture. But we are reading what was, I'm not saying totally irrelevant, but could have been packaged better, should have made us more enriched even at that point of time. I must really thank the author, Mr. M.K. Sudharshan, Mr. T.S. Krishnamurthy, Mr. Madhu, Mr. Raman, for taking this in a very, very seamlessly comfortable manner to all of us. The topic could have been a little controversial, but they managed to weave around it in such a way that it was more educative rather than ignite some controversial elements around it. But I'm very happy students are present here. And in fact, one of the criticisms of CAC has been earlier that we are a bookish type of an institution. We deal with a lot of books. We're very happy doing it because book reading, as somebody mentioned, is a dying art. We want to revive the enthusiasm and passion about book reading. We thank all the participants who have gathered in large numbers. And as usual, it's a full house. And the clamor to speed up the building progress is in full flow. And we assure you will like to complete it in about 18-20 months. We will get there. Thank you, one and all.
Our next few events, we meet again on the November 14th, Testimony by Fire, authored by Atulya Mishra. On November 29th, we have the Lit Fest. This is our 4th edition of the Chennai International Centre's Lit Fest. This will be at the Music Academy Mini Hall. On December 12th, we have a Lit Fest for young adults. This will be in the Shishya OMR School. On December 13th, we have Taking AI to Schools, Boon or Bane by Chitra Ravi and Narayan Ramsamy, again here. And on January 10th, we have The Art of Leg Spin, Timeless and Ageless, with our legendary V.V. Kumar. I hope all of you will be there to encourage us in all these events too. Thank you.